Hello, welcome back to Chapter Day and happy Sabbath. I pray you all are enjoying this day as God meant for us to. It's a command for us to rest, so take it. Your body, your mind, your spirit needs it. Today we're going to be reading Job chapter 41, which means we are closing into the end of Job. We have just one more chapter to be finished. And we are hearing God and Job kind of talking to each other, mostly God telling Job, you know what, Job, you have not been in control of, or are not in control of anything that goes on in this world, in this universe. It's all under my care. The animals, the trees, anything in nature, whether it's on earth or in the heavenly bodies, it has nothing to do with no human being. You, of course, not for sure. You cannot control anything. How many of us were able to control our being here? Our birth was out of our control. That was our parents. Okay? And you know, so many times we sit and we worry about things. How are we going to do this? How are we going to do that? And we say we trust in God. Hey, I always say, I'm talking to me first. And we can't even figure out how a bill is going to get paid. Or where, you know, how we going to get a job, how we're going to afford to live in a certain place, or are we going to be able to attend a certain school, and just things like that seem to be so trivial when we do look at it. We can't control that. So how can we control anything in nature, things that God has created? Okay, so let's continue with chapter 41 of Job. Canst thou draw out Leviathan with an hook, or his tongue with a cord which thou lettest down? Canst thou put an hook into his nose, or bore his jaw through with a thorn? No, I don't know what Leviathan is. There's so many mentions of things in this book of Job, like Behemoth. I'm not sure what Behemoth is. Then we had Leviathan. And then there was another one, I believe, that was mentioned. All things that, a unicorn, whatever unicorn is. So in this book, we have some mentions of some creatures that are just not to our knowledge. I don't know if it's part of the era when certain types of animals roamed, and then after the flood, some of those animals were done away with. I really don't know if this happened. They always debate when where the book of Job really fell in the Bible, before or after the flood. I don't know. So we'll just leave it as some of those things we just don't know. Verse 3, will he make many supplications unto thee? Will he speak soft words unto thee? Will he make a covenant with thee? Wilt thou take him for a servant forever? Wilt thou play with him as with a bird? Or wilt thou bind him for thy maidens? Shall the companions make a banquet of him? Shall they part him among the merchants? Canst thou fill his skin with barbed irons, or his head with fish spears? Lay thine hand upon him. Remember the battle. Do no more. Behold, the hope of him is in vain. Shall not one be cast down even at the sight of him? So I'm thinking to myself, that this thing called Leviathan is something majestic and fearsome. I don't know, but I know, and this is a mythological creature in Scotland that they call the Loch Ness Monster. Every time I read or hear the word Leviathan, that's my first picture. And I'm not sure why. I think at some time, maybe I may have seen some sort of someone's imagination on paper, and that's what it was. Or maybe that's just what comes to mind. Leviathan is this huge sea creature, maybe like a dinosaur. I don't know, but God knows, and he and Job are talking. Okay, verse 10, none is so fierce that dare stir him up. Who then is able to stand before me? If you cannot contend with that monster thing, or that, I don't want to use the word monster. God didn't make monsters. He made creatures that we label monsters. So Leviathan is so fierce and majestic that we as humans cannot contend with him. Who are we that we can contend with God? Oh, who made Leviathan? Okay. Verse 11, who hath prevented me that I should repay him? Whatsoever is under the whole heaven is mine. I will not conceal his parts, nor his power, nor his comely proportion. Who can discover the face of his garment? Or who can come to him with his double bridle? Who can open the doors of his face? His teeth are terrible round about. His scales are his pride, shut up together as with a close seal. Okay, so Leviathan is some scaly creature, huge teeth, fierce looking. You cannot bridle him as you would a horse. Yeah, you know, to another picture when they talk about dragons. Yeah, I kind of picture a dragon. Whatever, whoever came up with that idea. Leviathan gives me, you know, between a Loch Ness monster and a dragon, which they're sort of similar. Okay, yeah, that's my imagination for this thing every time I read about it. Okay, verse 16. One is so near to another that no air can come between them. He's describing the scales of this creature. Verse 17. They are joined one to another. They stick together that they cannot be sundered. By his neesings a light doth shine, and his eyes are like the eyelids of the morning. My gosh, you could imagine what that creature looks like. Out of his mouth go burning lamps, and sparks of fire leap out. Now, I would tell you right here, this is where they got the idea for a dragon. I am so serious. Now, I'm going to say this. Across cultures, we have mythological creatures, and every culture has something that they find fascinating. And I'm not sure where this dragon idea originated from. China has a lot of dragon ideas, okay, and replications and, you know, things like that. But I'm thinking this is where the whole idea came from. This huge creature that breathes fire out of its mouth. Now, we in our time have never seen any such creature, except, like I say, on television and reenactments. Sometimes if you look at the have ever attended a parade for the Chinese New Year, they have these people dressed in these costumes to look like dragons, whatever they are. But that's what I'm reminded of when I ever read of Leviathan in the book of Job. Okay, verse 20. Out of his nostrils goeth smoke, as out of a seething pot or cauldron. His breath kindleth coals, and a flame goeth out of his mouth. In his neck remaineth strength, and sorrow is turned into joy before him. The flakes of his flesh are joined together. They are firm in themselves. They cannot be moved. His heart is as firm as a stone, yea, as hard as a piece of the nether millstone. When he raiseth up himself, the mighty are afraid. By reason of breakings, they purify themselves. This is, oh my gosh, a fearful, awful, awesome, majestic, amazing creature that God has created. And God is telling Job, just like God was telling Satan about Job, God is now telling Job about this Leviathan creature, okay? How majestically made he is. Verse 26, the sword of him that layeth at him cannot hold, the spear, the dart, nor the habergeon. That means man's weapons cannot pierce this. And you know, have you ever seen movies where, I'm now thinking of a show that I saw not too long ago, with this dragon that, you know, one of those shows where the dragon is flying through the air and he's terrorizing the whole town. And of course, he's got to be eating somebody. I don't even know if that was the truth, but it's so fearsome that they have to make up things, you know. But it's all, I believe this is where they get it from. People come to the Bible for ideas. I can tell you that. Even people who say they're non-believers. Okay, so this is a fearsome creature that man cannot even kill it. Verse 27. He esteemeth iron as straw, and brass as rotten wood. The arrow cannot make him flee. Sling stones are turned with him into stubble. Darts are counted as stubble. He laugheth at the shaking of a spear. Sharp stones are under him. He spreadeth sharp-pointed things upon the mire. He maketh the deep to boil like a pot. He maketh the sea like a pot of ointment. He maketh a path to shine after him. One would think the deep to be hoary. So we are saying that this thing is living in the ocean, apparently. Maybe it can come on shore. It may be amphibious. It's so interesting. God has talked so much about it. This chapter 41 of Job, he's mostly describing this creature that I don't think any of us has ever seen, at least not in this time. So interesting, so interesting. Why he went into such detail about this awesome creature. Verse 33. Upon earth there is not his like, who is made without fear. He beholdeth all things. He is a king over the children of pride. So he's like one of those things. If you want to test your strength or how brave or how powerful you are as a human, go fight Leviathan. And you know what? I have seen so many movies where the outcome is to slay the dragon, and it usually ends up being really, really not good on the human side until someone who is specially appointed. It's very similar to the war that we are in, the great controversy between God and Satan. Only God can slay that dragon. Only God. So that's the end of our reading of Job chapter 41. Wowie, wowie. We are really, really, really closing up on the book of Job. And that is God describing one of his majestic creatures to Job. If man cannot contend with a beast that God created, how could we contend with God? There is a verse in the Bible that says, if you have ran with the footmen and are weary, how will you contend with the horses? Think about that. So when we kind of get to that place where we start to feel we are a lot too much more than we should be, let's go back and read chapter 41 of Job. And if we think we could contend with that creature, whether it be real or otherwise, then we can talk about how great we are. That's why we sing the song, how great thou art, not how great we are. That's the end of our reading for today. Thank you all for listening. Remember, that's how our faith comes and grows. Thank you all for hearing. Take care. Bye.